Have you ever been woken up in the dead of night by a sound so ordinary, yet terrifying because of the hour? Imagine hearing your doorbell ring at exactly 3 a.m. No wind, no storm, no footsteps retreating, just the bell. And then it rings again. What would you do? Before we begin this emotional and mysterious journey, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Kindness Stories, because what you're about to hear may just change the way you look at strangers, second chances, and your own heart. It all started on a Thursday night in a quiet neighborhood in Oregon. Elena Thomas, a 35-year-old nurse, lived alone in a small house she inherited from her grandmother. Her life was routine, filled with 12-hour shifts, missed calls, and frozen dinners. She wasn't lonely exactly, but something in her had long since stopped expecting surprises. That night, the clock had just hit 2:58 a.m. when her eyes fluttered open. No reason, no noise, just awake. She sat up groggily, unsure if her body was responding to a bad dream or something deeper. Then, 2 minutes later, as if summoned by an invisible hand, her doorbell rang. She froze. She wasn't expecting anyone, certainly not at this hour. Her street was lined with homes that shut down by 10 p.m., and she knew every neighbor by name. Even the night owls weren't this reckless. She grabbed her phone. No messages, no alerts. She tiptoed toward the front of the house, where the doorbell's chime still seemed to echo inside her bones. She peeked through the peephole. No one. Her heart thundered. She waited, clutching her phone with trembling fingers, torn between opening the door or calling the police. Maybe it was a glitch. Maybe someone rang it by accident. Then it rang again. This time she jumped, and that's when she saw it, a small envelope being slipped under her door. No footsteps, no shadow walking away, just silence. She rushed to the door and snatched the envelope. It had no return address, just her name, Elena, written in neat cursive. She opened it with shaking hands. Inside, there was a single line. He needs you, before it's too late. No explanation, no signature. Her breath caught in her throat. What did it mean? Who was he? And why was this happening at 3 in the morning? She barely slept that night, and she didn't know it yet, but this was only the beginning. By morning, Elena had convinced herself it was a prank. Maybe a teenager with a twisted sense of humor. Maybe even a lost delivery driver. She even thought about installing a camera, just in case. But nothing could explain that handwritten note. She shoved it into her drawer and tried to forget. Days passed, then a week. She began sleeping again, sort of. Her nerves still curled up tight each night around 3 a.m. But the bell didn't ring again. Until it did. Exactly 1 week later. 3 Uhr nachts. Ding dong. She bolted upright like a shot, her heart already racing before her feet touched the floor. This time, she didn't wait. She stormed to the front door, turned on the porch light, and yanked the door open. There he was, a boy, maybe 10 years old, wearing a thin hoodie, barefoot, shivering. Elena froze. "Are you okay?" she asked, the words catching in her throat. He didn't answer, just looked up at her with the biggest, saddest blue eyes she'd ever seen. "You're him," she whispered. The note, the warning. "Who are you?" The boy didn't speak, but slowly extended a small envelope toward her. Inside was another handwritten message. "Please don't send him away again." "Again? I don't understand," she whispered, stepping outside. "Who are you? Are you lost? Are your parents nearby?" The boy didn't respond, but before she could call the police or even offer him a blanket, headlights from a black car flicked on at the end of the street. The boy looked back, terrified, and ran. "Wait!" she shouted, chasing after him, but the car screeched away, and he vanished into the darkness. She called the cops. They arrived, took a report, and left without answers. No one saw the boy. No one saw a car. And worst of all, when they checked her doorbell camera, the footage from 3 a.m. to 3:10 was corrupted. Black screen. No sound. The officers left with apologies. Probably a runaway, one said. But you did the right thing calling us. She didn't feel right at all. She felt haunted. And then came the dream. That night, Elena tossed and turned until she saw him again, in her sleep. But this time, she was no longer in her home. She was in a hospital. And the boy, he was lying on a stretcher, pale, unmoving, tubes in his arm. A nurse, a younger version of herself, stood over him. He looked up at her and whispered, "You promised you'd come back." And then she woke up screaming. The next day, Elena dug through her old nursing records. She'd worked in pediatrics years ago before the stress got too much and she transferred to general care. Could he be one of her old patients? She spent the entire afternoon calling old hospitals, friends, co-workers, anyone who might help her remember. That face, those eyes, they were familiar. Finally, an old nurse friend, Myra, called her back. "Your message was strange," Myra said. "But there was a kid. Years ago. Critical car crash victim. Barely survived. No family came. But you were obsessed with him. You stayed past your shifts to sit with him. You called what was it? Andy." The name hit her like a wave. She had promised him she'd come back after her vacation. But the day she returned, she'd been transferred to a different department due to a staffing emergency. Life moved on. She had forgotten him. Tears filled her eyes. "Do you know what happened to him?" Myra hesitated. "He went missing. Right before his adoption went through. It was all over the news. No one knows where he went. It's like he disappeared." Elena's stomach dropped. "How long ago was that?" Myra paused. "Almost exactly 10 years ago. In July. That was this month. That boy, he was Andy. But how? He hadn't aged a day. She didn't sleep that night. And when the doorbell rang again at 3 a.m., this time, she was waiting. Elena stood at the door, her hand on the knob, her chest rising and falling like thunder. This time, she opened it without fear. Andy stood there. Same hoodie, same eyes. Only now, he looked even sadder. He held no note this time, just a small, worn teddy bear, the one she'd given him in the hospital. She remembered it now. He whispered, "Can I come in?" She nodded, eyes brimming with tears. He sat silently on her couch as she made him tea if he didn't drink. The room was quiet except for the soft ticking of the kitchen clock. At last, he looked at her and said, "You left, and I waited, but they took me away, somewhere cold. I tried to find you, but I wasn't real anymore." She felt her heart cracking. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "But you remembered. That's why I'm here." "What do you mean?" "I just needed you to remember. So I could go." Elena blinked, confused. "Go where?" "To rest." His smile deepened, and before her eyes, he began to fade like dust in sunlight. "No, wait," she cried, reaching out, but her hand passed through him. His eyes stayed on hers until they were gone. The teddy bear remained. The doorbell never rang again. Elena placed the bear on her bookshelf, right above her photo of graduating nursing school. She returned to pediatrics. She stayed late. She watched over every child who had no one else. And every July, she lit a single candle. For Andy. If this story moved you, please like this video and subscribe to Kindness Stories. Your support helps us bring real, emotional, and healing stories to light, reminding us all of the people we once promised we'd never forget. Would you like the thumbnail prompt, description, hashtags, and SEO tags next for this story?